Subscribe if you believe in love that sneaks up on you. The word bro shouldn't hurt this much, but every time James says it, something inside me withers a little more. He tosses it around so casually, like a verbal pat on the back, completely unaware that each time it lands, it reminds me exactly where I stand in his world. Just his bro. Just his buddy. Just the guy who's been quietly dying inside for the past 8 months while pretending everything between us is perfectly normal. I've become an expert at hiding the way my chest tightens when he walks into a room shirtless, or how my breath catches when he laughs at something stupid I've said. I've mastered the art of looking interested when he talks about whatever girl he's seeing, nodding along like a supportive friend should, even though every word feels like a small knife twisting deeper. Nathan the good friend. Nathan the reliable roommate. Nathan the guy who will never be anything more than a bro. The worst part is how easy our friendship has always been. We fell into this rhythm in college that felt as natural as breathing, late-night conversations about everything and nothing, shared meals, comfortable silences that never felt awkward. Other people used to joke that we acted like a couple, and James would always laugh it off with that same casual dismissal. We're just bros, man. Best friends. And I would smile and agree, even as something in me screamed that it felt like so much more. But James has never shown any sign of seeing me as anything beyond friendship. He dates women exclusively, talks about them with genuine interest, and seems completely comfortable in his heterosexuality. Meanwhile, I've been quietly unraveling, trying to figure out when exactly my feelings shifted from platonic to something that keeps me awake at night. When did his laugh start making my heart race? When did I start memorizing the way he runs his hand through his hair when he's thinking? When did I become this person who analyzes every casual touch, every lingering glance, searching for signs that probably don't exist? Living with him has become both a blessing and a torture. I get to see him every day, share meals with him, fall asleep to the sound of his voice drifting through the thin walls of our apartment. But I also have to watch him get ready for dates, listen to him talk about women he finds attractive, and pretend that none of it affects me. I've become skilled at excusing myself when he brings someone home, disappearing into my room with headphones and a book, trying to drown out the sounds of a life I'll never be part of. The hiding is exhausting. I've started avoiding certain conversations, deflecting when he asks about my dating life, making excuses when he suggests we hang out with groups that might include single women he thinks I should meet. He's noticed my distance lately, I can tell. He'll catch me staring sometimes, and there's this moment of confusion in his eyes, like he's trying to solve a puzzle he doesn't understand. Then he'll grin and call me bro again, and the moment passes, leaving me more convinced than ever that I'm imagining things that aren't there. I know I should probably move out, create some space between us so I can figure out how to get over this. But the thought of losing our daily interactions, our easy companionship, feels impossible. So I stay, trapped in this liminal space between friendship and something I can never have, watching him live his life while I quietly fall apart. Every bro is a reminder of the wall between us, a wall I helped build by never being brave enough to tell him the truth about who I really am or what I really want. I tell myself our friendship is enough, that I should be grateful for what we have. After all, not everyone gets to live with their best friend from college, sharing an apartment that feels more like home than anywhere I've ever been. James and I have been inseparable since our sophomore year at State, when we got paired as roommates in the dorms and discovered we both stayed up too late playing video games and survived entirely on pizza and energy drinks. 7 years later, we're still here, still figuring out adult life together, still finishing each other's sentences in a way that makes other people assume we're dating. If you believe in connections that run deeper than words, tap like and let us know in the comments what you think happens next. The assumption isn't entirely wrong, at least not from my perspective. We share everything: groceries, streaming accounts, and side jokes that make us laugh until our sides hurt. James works construction, coming home most days covered in dust and exhaustion, while I teach high school English to teenagers who think Shakespeare is a form of medieval torture. Our schedules complement each other perfectly. He's usually gone by 6 in the morning, and I'm home by 4, which means I often have dinner waiting when he walks through the door looking like he's been wrestling with concrete all day. Our apartment reflects both of us in ways that feel natural and unforced. His work boots by the door, my stack of ungraded papers on the kitchen counter, his protein powder next to my coffee maker, his action movies mixed with my indie films on the shelf. We've created this life together that looks domestic from the outside, and sometimes I let myself pretend it means what I want it to mean. But then reality crashes back in, usually in the form of James mentioning a woman he's interested in or asking me to wingman for him at some bar. 3 months ago, it was Natalie, a nurse he met at his cousin's wedding. She's blonde, petite, and has this infectious laugh that makes James light up whenever she texts him. I've watched him get ready for their dates, helped him pick out shirts, listened to him analyze every conversation they've had. I've perfected the art of being supportive while my heart quietly disintegrates. The worst part is how good I've become at playing the role of the encouraging best friend. When James comes home from dates with Natalie, I ask all the right questions, make all the appropriate comments, even offer advice when he's unsure about something. I've become an expert at hiding behind genuine care for his happiness, using my love for him as a shield against the pain of watching him love someone else. James has always been tactile, even back in college. He's the kind of person who throws his arm around your shoulders during movies, who pulls you into bear hugs when you're celebrating something, who thinks nothing of falling asleep on your couch after a long day. I used to think it was just his personality, the way he moves through the world with easy physical affection. But lately, I've started wondering if there's something more intentional about the way he touches me, the way he lingers just a moment longer than necessary. Last week, we were watching a movie, and he stretched out across the couch with his head in my lap. It's something he's done 100 times before, but this time felt different. I found myself running my fingers through his hair without thinking, and instead of pulling away or making a joke, he just closed his eyes and made this soft sound of contentment. For 20 minutes, I sat there barely breathing, afraid to move and break whatever spell had settled over us. When the movie ended, he looked up at me with this expression I couldn't read, something vulnerable and questioning, before sitting up and returning to his usual spot on the other end of the couch. These moments are becoming more frequent, and they're driving me crazy. The way he looks at me sometimes, like he's trying to figure something out. The way he started asking more personal questions about my dating life, seeming almost relieved when I deflect or change the subject. The way he's been staying home more often instead of going out with his construction crew, choosing to spend quiet evenings with me instead. I keep telling myself I'm reading too much into everything, that my feelings are making me see things that aren't there. James has never shown any interest in men, never even made a comment that would suggest he questions his sexuality. He dates women, talks about women, seems genuinely attracted to women like Natalie. I'm probably just projecting my own desperate hopes onto innocent moments of friendship. But then there are nights like last Tuesday, when he came home from a date with Natalie looking frustrated and distant. Instead of sharing details like he usually does, he just sat down next to me on the couch and said, "Sometimes I feel like I'm trying to force something that should come naturally." When I asked what he meant, he shook his head and changed the subject, but I caught him looking at me with that same unreadable expression from the movie night. The uncertainty is almost worse than the certainty of unrequited love. At least when I was sure he could never feel the same way, I could focus on managing my own expectations and protecting our friendship. But these moments of possibility, these glimpses of something that might be mutual attraction, make it impossible to find any peace. I'm constantly analyzing every interaction, every glance, every casual touch, trying to determine if I'm losing my mind or if something is actually shifting between us. Living with him has become a careful dance of maintaining normalcy while my entire world revolves around stolen moments and half-imagined connections. I watch him shave in the morning, listen to him singing in the shower, fall asleep to the sound of his breathing in the next room, all while pretending my heart isn't breaking a little more each day. The domesticity I once cherished now feels like beautiful torture, a constant reminder of how close I am to everything I want and how impossible it remains to reach. Living with him has become a careful dance of maintaining normalcy while my entire world revolves around stolen moments and half-imagined connections. I watch him shave in the morning, listen to him singing in the shower, fall asleep to the sound of his breathing in the next room, all while pretending my heart isn't breaking a little more each day. The domesticity I once cherished now feels like beautiful torture, a constant reminder of how close I am to everything I want and how impossible it remains to reach. If this story hits you, drop a heart in the comments. The camping trip idea comes from James on a Thursday evening in late September. He sprawled across our couch, still in his work clothes, dirt under his fingernails from the construction site, and there's something restless in his energy that I've been noticing more frequently lately. "We should get out of the city for a weekend," he says, not looking up from his phone. "Remember that spot we found junior year? The lake with the decent fishing?" I remember everything about that trip. The way he looked building our fire, the constellation of freckles across his shoulders when he took his shirt off to swim, how we stayed up talking until dawn about our dreams and fears. I also remember spending most of that weekend convinced I was developing feelings that would ruin everything, not knowing those feelings would only grow stronger with time. Yeah, I remember, I say, trying to keep my voice neutral. When were you thinking? Next weekend? I already checked with the guys at work, and they said the weather should hold. He finally looks at me, and there's something in his expression I can't quite read. It's been too long since we had some real time together, you know? Just us. The phrase, just us, does something dangerous to my chest, and I have to look away before he sees whatever's written on my face. Sure, I'll request Friday off. Planning the trip becomes an exercise in controlled anticipation. James throws himself into preparation with the same intensity he brings to everything else, researching the best hiking trails, organizing our gear, even buying a new tent because our old one wasn't big enough for two grown men. When he says this, standing in the camping store with the tent box in his hands, something in his tone makes me wonder if he's thinking about the same thing I am, the reality of sharing such a small space. The intimacy of sleeping inches apart with only nylon separating us from the wilderness. The drive up to the lake takes 3 hours, and James insists on controlling the music, cycling through playlists that seem designed to create a specific mood. There's something different about him today, a kind of nervous energy that I've never seen before. His hands drum against the steering wheel, and he keeps glancing at me when he thinks I'm not looking. The conversation flows easily, but underneath it, I sense an undercurrent of something unspoken, like we're both waiting for something to happen without knowing what it might be. When we reach the campsite, the late afternoon sun is filtering through the trees in golden shafts, and the lake stretches out before us like a mirror. James parks the truck and just sits for a moment, staring out at the water. God, I forgot how beautiful this place is, he says, and when he turns to me, there's something vulnerable in his expression that makes my breath catch. Setting up camp becomes a study in casual intimacy. James insists on handling the tent while I organize our supplies, but he keeps asking for my help with small things, holding a corner here, steadying a pole there. Each interaction requires us to move closer together, and I become hyper-aware of every brush of his fingers against mine, every moment when our bodies occupy the same space. When he needs to reach past me for something, his chest presses against my back for just a second, and I swear I feel him pause, feel his breathing change. You okay? I ask, because the tension is becoming impossible to ignore. Yeah, he says, but his voice is rougher than usual. Just, it's good to be here. With you. The way he says, with you, makes something twist in my stomach, and I have to busy myself with unpacking our food to avoid looking at him directly. But I can feel his eyes on me, and when I finally glance up, he's watching me with an intensity that makes my pulse race. As evening approaches, we build a fire and settle into our camp chairs with beers, falling into the easy rhythm of conversation that has always been our strength. But tonight feels different. James keeps leaning forward in his chair, closing the distance between us, and when he laughs at something I say, his hand lands on my knee and stays there longer than necessary. The touch burns through my jeans, and I find myself holding my breath, afraid that moving will break whatever spell is keeping his hand there. I've been thinking about a lot of things lately, he says suddenly, staring into the fire. About what I want, what makes me happy. He pauses, and his thumb moves slightly against my knee, a gesture so small it might be unconscious. Being here with you, it feels right in a way that other things don't. My heart is pounding so hard I'm sure he can hear it. What do you mean? He looks at me then, and in the firelight, his eyes seem to hold depths I've never noticed before. I mean that this, us, here, talking like this, it's better than anything else I do. Better than dating. Better than going out with other people. Sometimes I think. He trails off, shaking his head. Think what? Sometimes I think I'm looking for something in all the wrong places, he says quietly. Like maybe what I need has been right in front of me the whole time. The air between us feels charged, electric with possibility and fear. I want to ask him what he means, want to push for clarity, but I'm terrified of misunderstanding, of reading too much into words that might mean something entirely different than what my heart is hoping for. When we finally head to the tent, the small space feels even more intimate than I anticipated. James changes into sleep clothes without any self-consciousness, and I try not to stare at the familiar landscape of his body, the way his t-shirt rides up slightly when he pulls it over his head. Our sleeping bags are close enough that I can feel the warmth radiating from his body, and when he settles in beside me, he's facing me instead of turning away. Nathan, he says softly, and my name in his voice sounds different somehow, weighted with something I can't identify. Yeah, I'm glad we did this. I needed to get away from everything else and just be here with you. In the darkness, I can just make out the outline of his face, and there's something in his expression that makes my chest tight with hope and terror. Me too, I whisper, He reaches out then, his hand finding mine in the small space between our sleeping bags, and his fingers intertwine with mine. It's not the first time we've held hands. We've done it during emotional moments, during movies, and moments of comfort. But this feels different. Intentional. Like he's trying to tell me something without words. "Sleep well, bro," he says. But his voice is soft, almost tender, and his thumb traces across my knuckles in a way that feels anything but brotherly. I lie awake long after his breathing evens out, staring at the ceiling of the tent and feeling the weight of his hand in mine. Every rational part of my brain tells me I'm reading too much into innocent gestures, that I'm seeing what I want to see instead of what's actually there. But my heart insists that something is shifting between us, that the careful boundaries we've maintained for years are beginning to blur. If this story resonates with you, drop a heart in the comments below. The camping trip ends with an awkward distance that neither of us acknowledges directly. James packs up our gear with his usual efficiency, but there's something different in the way he avoids my eyes, like he's second-guessing every moment from the night before. When a hand in the sleeping bags, our fingers brush, and he pulls away quickly, muttering something about getting on the road. The drive home is filled with classic rock and forced conversation about work, both of us pretending that nothing has changed when everything feels fundamentally different. Back in our apartment, we fall into our old routines, but there's a new tension threading through our interactions. James throws himself into work projects with renewed intensity, picking up extra shifts and staying late on job sites. I bury myself in lesson planning and grading papers, using the familiar rhythm of teaching to distract from the questions that keep circling in my mind. We still share meals and watch TV together, but there's a careful politeness between us now, like we're both afraid of crossing some invisible line we've suddenly become aware of. The next few weeks pass in this strange limbo. James mentions Natalie less frequently, and when he does, it's with a distracted air that suggests his heart isn't really in it. I catch him staring at his phone sometimes, typing messages and then deleting them before starting over. Part of me wonders if he's struggling with something he can't name, the same way I've been struggling for months. But every time I consider bringing up what happened during our camping trip, fear stops me cold. 3 weeks after we return from the mountains, I have one of those days that reminds me why teaching can be both the most rewarding and most draining profession in the world. A parent conference goes sideways when a mother accuses me of showing favoritism, a student I've been mentoring gets suspended for fighting, and the copy machine breaks down right before I need to print tomorrow's assignments. By the time I drag myself home, I feel emotionally wrung out, like every reserve of patience and optimism has been depleted. James is waiting in the kitchen when I walk through the door, and the sight of him stops me in my tracks. He's changed out of his work clothes into jeans and a soft gray Henley that brings out his eyes, and there's takeout containers from my favorite Thai place spread across the counter. The concern on his face is immediate and genuine, the careful distance of the past few weeks temporarily forgotten. "Rough day?" he asks, and his voice has that gentle quality that always undoes me. I nod, suddenly feeling dangerously close to tears. "You could say that." He moves around the counter and pulls me into a hug without hesitation, and for a moment, I let myself sink into the solid warmth of his chest. He smells like sawdust and his cologne, familiar and comforting, and I have to force myself to pull away before I do something stupid like tell him everything. "I got your favorite," he says, gesturing to the food. "Pad Thai with extra peanuts and those spring rolls you always steal off my plate." The thoughtfulness of it hits me harder than it should. "You didn't have to do that." "I wanted to." He studies my face with an intensity that makes my pulse quicken. "You've been different lately, Nathan. Distant. And today you looked like you were carrying the weight of the world when you walked in." We eat in companionable silence, and I feel some of the day's tension begin to ease. James keeps the conversation light, telling me about a project at work where he's building custom cabinets for a client's kitchen renovation. His enthusiasm for craftsmanship always amazes me, the way his whole face lights up when he talks about joining techniques and wood grain patterns. I find myself watching his hands as he gestures, remembering how those same hands held mine in the tent. After dinner, we migrate to the couch, and James mutes the TV during a commercial break. The sudden quiet feels loaded with possibility and danger. "Talk to me," he says, turning to face me fully. "And don't tell me you're fine, because I know you're not." I stare at my hands, trying to find words that won't reveal too much. "It's just work stuff. Some days are harder than others." "Bullshit." His voice is gentle but firm. "I've known you for 6 years, Nathan. I can tell when something's eating at you, and this isn't about difficult parents or broken copy machines." The directness of his gaze makes me squirm. "James, You've been pulling away from me for weeks, he continues, and there's something almost vulnerable in his voice. Ever since we got back from camping, it's like you can barely stand to be in the same room with me. Did I do something wrong? Did I cross a line somehow? The question hits me like a physical blow. He thinks he did something wrong, when the truth is that he did everything right, and that's exactly the problem. I look up at him, seeing the genuine worry in his eyes, and I feel something crack inside my chest. You didn't do anything wrong, I say quietly. Then what is it? He leans forward, his elbows on his knees. Because this distance between us is killing me, bro. Our friendship means everything to me, and I can't stand the thought that I've somehow screwed it up. The word bro stings, even though it shouldn't. Even though he's said it thousands of times before. But now it feels like a reminder of exactly what we are and what we'll never be. You haven't screwed anything up, I insist, but my voice sounds strained even to my own ears. Then why won't you look at me? Why do you flinch every time I touch you? Why does it feel like you're trying to disappear whenever I'm around? His questions are like arrows finding their mark, each one hitting closer to the truth I'm not ready to speak. I can feel my carefully constructed walls beginning to crumble and panic rises in my throat. James, please, I whisper. Just let it go. No. His voice is firm, almost angry. I won't let it go. Whatever this is, we can work through it. We always do. But you have to talk to me. I stand up abruptly, needing distance, needing space to breathe. Some things can't be worked through. He follows me, catching my arm gently but firmly. That's not true. There's nothing we can't handle together. The touch of his hand on my arm sends electricity through my entire body, and I have to close my eyes against the intensity of it. When I open them, he's staring at me with an expression I can't quite read, something between confusion and understanding. Nathan, he says softly, and my name on his lips sounds different somehow. What aren't you telling me? For a moment, I teeter on the edge of confession, feeling the words pressing against my teeth like caged birds desperate for freedom. But then fear wins, the way it always does, and I pull away from his touch. I need some air, I mutter, heading for the door. Running away won't solve anything, he calls after me, but I'm already gone. I walk for hours through the empty streets, my phone buzzing with increasingly worried texts from James that I can't bring myself to answer. The cool night air does nothing to calm the storm in my chest, and by the time I circle back to our apartment building, it's past midnight. I sit on the front steps for another 20 minutes, staring at the darkened windows of our place, knowing I can't avoid this conversation forever. When I finally slip inside, I expect to find James asleep, but he's sitting on the couch in the dim light of a single lamp, still wearing the same clothes from earlier. He looks up when I enter, relief flooding his features before concern takes over again. Thank God, he says quietly, standing up. I was starting to think about calling your parents. I'm sorry, I say, not meeting his eyes. I just needed to think. For 4 hours? There's no anger in his voice, just exhaustion and worry. Nathan, whatever's going on, we can figure it out together. We always do. I want to tell him that this time is different, that some problems can't be solved with late-night conversations and shared takeout, but instead I just nod and head toward my room. I'm tired, James. Can we just talk tomorrow? He doesn't try to stop me, but I can feel his eyes on my back as I disappear down the hallway. I lie awake for hours, staring at the ceiling and replaying every moment of our conversation, wondering if I'm a coward for running or smart for protecting what we have left. The next few days pass in careful politeness. James gives me space but watches me with those concerned eyes, and I pretend everything is normal while dying a little more inside each time he calls me bro or mentions something casual about his relationship with Natalie. If you've ever felt like you're drowning in plain sight, drop a heart in the comments. It's Friday night when everything shifts. James comes home from work looking unusually subdued, and instead of his usual cheerful greeting, he just nods and heads straight to the kitchen. I'm grading papers at the dining table when he emerges with 2 beers, setting one in front of me without asking. Rough day. I ask, grateful for the neutral territory. You could say that. He takes a long drink, then stares at the bottle in his hands. I broke up with Natalie. The words hit me like a physical blow, and I have to grip my pen tighter to keep from showing any reaction. Oh, I'm sorry, man. What happened? James is quiet for so long I wonder if he heard me. When he finally speaks, his voice is barely above a whisper. I couldn't keep pretending anymore. Pretending what? He looks up at me then, and there's something raw and vulnerable in his expression that makes my chest tighten. That I was happy. That what we had was enough. That I wasn't thinking about. He trails off, shaking his head. God, this is harder than I thought it would be. My heart is pounding so hard I'm sure he can hear it. James, what are you trying to say? I've been doing a lot of thinking since our fight the other night, he says, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. About what you said, about how some things can't be fixed, about why you've been pulling away from me. I want to run again, but something in his tone keeps me frozen in place. James? Let me finish, he says gently. I know you think I don't notice things, but I do. I notice when you get quiet during my phone calls with Natalie. I notice when you find excuses to leave the room when I talk about dating. I notice how you look at me sometimes when you think I'm not paying attention. The blood drains from my face. I don't know what you're talking about. And I notice how I feel when you do those things, he continues as if I haven't spoken. How it bothers me more than it should when you pull away. How I started picking fights with Natalie because she wasn't, because she couldn't. Because she couldn't what? The words come out as barely a whisper. James meets my eyes, and I see fear there, but also determination. Because she couldn't be you. The silence that follows is deafening. I stare at him, sure I've misheard. Sure this is some kind of cruel joke or misunderstanding. But James doesn't look away, doesn't take it back, just sits there waiting for me to process what he's just said. I don't understand, I manage finally. I've been questioning everything about myself lately, he says, his voice gaining strength. About what I want, who I am, what makes me happy. And every time I try to picture my future, you're the only constant. Not as my roommate or my best friend, but as more. I feel like I'm having an out-of-body experience. James, you're straight. You date women. You. I thought I was, he interrupts. Or maybe I wanted to be because it seemed easier. But Nathan, I've never felt about anyone the way I feel about you. I've never wanted to protect someone the way I want to protect you. Never felt jealous when someone else got your attention. Never felt like my whole world shifted when someone smiled at me. Tears are burning behind my eyes, and I don't trust myself to speak. James reaches across the space between us, his fingers barely brushing mine. I know this is scary, he says softly. I know it changes everything. But I can't keep pretending that what I feel for you is just friendship when it's so much more than that. How long? I ask, my voice cracking. How long have you known? Honestly, I think part of me has always known, he admits. But I've been fighting it, telling myself it was just because we're so close, because we live together. It wasn't until you started pulling away that I realized what I was really afraid of losing. I look down at our hands, his fingers now fully intertwined with mine, and something breaks open in my chest. I've been in love with you for months, I whisper. I've been dying keeping it to myself. James's grip tightens. I know. I think I've known for a while, but I was too scared to admit it to myself, let alone to you. What does this mean? I ask, finally meeting his eyes again. Where do we go from here? I don't know, he says honestly. But I know I can't go back to pretending. I can't watch you pull away from me because you think I can't give you what you need. I want to try, Nathan. I want to see what this could be. The hope in his voice is almost too much to bear. What if we ruin everything? What if we lose what we have? What if we don't? He counters. What if we find something even better? I stare at him, this man who has been my best friend, my constant, my impossible dream, and realize that maybe impossible things do happen sometimes. Maybe the person you love can love you back, even when you never dared to hope for it. I'm scared, I admit. Me too, he says, bringing our joined hands to his lips and pressing a gentle kiss to my knuckles. But I'd rather be scared with you than safe without you. The weight of his words settles between us, and I feel something shift in the air, a door opening that we've both been afraid to walk through. James's thumb traces gentle circles across my knuckles, and I can see the vulnerability in his eyes, the same fear and hope that's been eating at me for months. Nathan, he says softly, and there's something different in the way he says my name now, like he's tasting it for the first time. I need you to know something else. My heart hammers against my ribs. What? I've been lying to myself about a lot of things, he continues, his voice barely above a whisper. About Natalie, about what I want, about... He pauses, swallowing hard. About you. The room feels too small suddenly, like all the oxygen has been sucked out. I want to speak, to ask what he means, but the words stick in my throat. Every time I called you, bro, every time I talked about dating women, I was trying to convince myself that what I felt for you was just friendship. His eyes search mine, desperate and raw. But it's not, Nathan. It's never been just friendship for me. I stare at him, certain I'm dreaming. James? I love you, he says, the words tumbling out like he's been holding them back for years. Not as a friend, not as a brother. I'm in love with you, and I have been for so long I can't remember when it started. I just know that every day I don't tell you feels like I'm suffocating. The confession hangs between us, beautiful and terrifying. I feel tears prick at my eyes, months of hidden longing finally finding their voice. I thought I was going crazy, I whisper. All those times you'd look at me and I'd think maybe, but then you'd mention some girl or call me bro, and I'd convince myself I was imagining things. You weren't imagining anything. His free hand comes up to cup my face, thumb brushing away a tear I didn't realize had fallen. I was just too scared to let myself feel it. Too scared of losing you if I was wrong. You could never lose me, I breathe, leaning into his touch. Even if you didn't feel the same way, you could never lose me. Something breaks open in his expression, relief and love and pure joy flooding his features. Can I? He doesn't finish the question, but I know what he's asking. Instead of answering with words, I lean forward, closing the distance between us. Our lips meet in a kiss that's soft and tentative at first, then deeper as we both realize this is real, this is happening. His arms come around me, pulling me closer until I'm practically in his lap, and I can taste the salt of tears, mine or his, I can't tell. When we finally break apart, both breathing hard, he rests his forehead against mine. I can't believe we almost let fear win, he murmurs. But we didn't, I say, my hands fisting in his shirt like I'm afraid he'll disappear. We're here. We're doing this. He pulls back just enough to look at me, his eyes bright with unshed tears and something that looks like wonder. I love you, Nathan. I love you so much it scares me. I love you too, I whisper back, and saying it out loud feels like coming home after being lost for months. I love you too, James. He pulls me into his chest then, holding me so tight I can feel his heartbeat against my cheek, strong and steady and real. For the first time in months, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, everything is going to be okay. Comment below where you're listening from. 3 weeks later, I'm grading papers at our kitchen table when James walks in from work, his construction boots heavy on the hardwood floor. He drops his tool bag by the door and comes up behind me, his hands settling on my shoulders in a way that still makes my breath catch. The casual touches are different now, deliberate, tender, full of meaning we no longer have to hide. How was your day, bro? He asks, and I feel him smile against my neck as he says it. The word that used to sting now carries warmth, affection, and an inside joke between us. We've kept our friendship's language while adding layers of intimacy that make everything feel both familiar and brand new. Better now, I tell him, leaning back into his chest. He smells like sawdust and sunshine, and I close my eyes as his arms wrap around me from behind. We've been careful with each other, taking things slow, learning how to be lovers without losing the foundation that made us best friends. Some nights we just hold each other, talking until dawn about everything and nothing. Other nights, we explore this new territory with gentle hands and whispered promises, discovering that the chemistry we'd both been fighting was worth the wait. I was thinking, James says, his voice soft in my ear, maybe we should tell my parents this weekend. When we visit for dinner, my heart skips. We've been living in this beautiful bubble, just the two of us figuring out how to be together. The thought of sharing our truth with the world feels both terrifying and necessary. You sure you're ready for that? I ask, turning in his arms to face him. He cups my face in his calloused hands, those blue eyes steady and sure. I've never been more ready for anything in my life. I love you, Nathan. I want everyone to know. I kiss him then, soft and sweet, tasting the future on his lips. I love you too, bro, I whisper, and we both laugh at how perfect it sounds now that we finally mean everything it implies.